What's up, guys? This is Sig from FFXIV and Things, and this is How to MMORPG. In this episode, we're going to be talking about stats and leveling, and we're just going to go over more specifically and re-go over that stuff and kind of do it a little more concisely. But we've talked about what an MMORPG is. We talked a little bit about classes and roles. We also talked about races, and we've talked a little bit about general tips. And we're definitely going to be giving more general tips as time goes on. And one real quick one is a lot of what it is just learning how the game works. And that will allow you to have a lot more fun, because you won't be trying to figure out, how to do what and, anything like that. You know what I mean? You'll already have the tools to go out there and really just dig in. So the more you can do that, the better off you're going to be for sure. You don't have to do it too seriously at first, for sure, but just a general idea, and that's what this series is really focused on. It's just giving you a really general idea of how the game works, or how an MMORPG works. Definitely how Final Fantasy XIV works, just so that you can at least get in and have a good foundation to stand on, for sure. There's definitely going to be specifics in games that you're going to have to learn and stuff like that. Generally, outside of what we're going to talk about, you probably won't have to learn too terribly much, but you probably realistically won't have to worry about it till later on. But like I said, today we're going to be talking about stats and leveling. And stats are basically an intrinsic part of your character that determine how well your character performs specific actions and interacts with the world. In games like tabletop games like D&D and stuff like that, generally it's a lot more involved. But in video games, generally it's not so much. You know what I mean? But let's just let's just dive right in. Stats are numerical values that represent how proficient your character is at certain activities. So let's take a look at Sig here and see where his stats stand, and we're going to go over each stat and what they mean. We're going to try and go over generally what they mean in MMOs, and also wrong button, and also what they mean in Final Fantasy XIV. So let's go ahead and we'll zoom this in real quick. This is a 6-character sheet in Final Fantasy XIV, and every game is going to have one of these for sure, with a detailed account of where your character stands and where their stats are at the time, at any given moment. A lot of stats, a lot of numbers, a lot of classifications, a lot of categories. But we're just going to go over main stats right now. We will definitely go over here, but right now we're just going to get into the main portion of the stats. As you can see, as I scroll over each stat, it's actually going to pop up with a little tooltip that's going to describe for me what this stat does within the game. And again, that goes back to our general tip, our first general tip: read everything. And this is just this is just going to tell you exactly what this stat does and what it means and what it affects in the game. You can see that these are our main stats or attributes. Our first one is strength, and you can see that it says it affects physical melee damage, and that's pretty general. It's a pretty general thing. Generally, strength is going to affect how strong you are, how well you swing a weapon, how much damage you do by swinging a weapon, and that's generally going to be about it. It also sometimes will actually affect how well you can take damage. Will affect your defense and things like that. So the stronger you are, the more damage you can take. And they're going to be, just so you know, just another little general tip, a little insight is, sometimes there are going to be things that the stats are going to do that aren't exactly reflected in just this tooltip here. You might have to dig a little deeper, go through the manual of the game or something like that if you're really, really interested and want to know. But generally that tooltip is really all you really have to worry about. You really don't have to worry about everything else that it does, unless you want to get into like number crunching and things like that. So our first stat, as you can see, first one we're going to talk about is strength, and like I said, it's just going to affect generally how strong you are and anything that is affected by strength. And it's generally a real world thing as well. You know, you can very much think of it in a kind of in a real world aspect to one degree or another. So how strong you are and how much damage you do by swinging weapons. And that's generally, that's really what strength is. The next one's going to be dexterity, and dexterity is going to affect anything that takes any kind of dexterous movement, like, or it also could be called agility. In some games it may have a different name. It may be dex, it may be dexterity, it may be agility, things like that. But anything in that line is what this is going to affect. How fast you move, how high you can jump sometimes, how well you can dodge for sure. And then generally any ranged class, ranged physical class, or a class that deals physical damage from range is going to be affected by dexterity. So that includes anybody with guns, anybody with bows and arrows, slings, anything like that. Generally is going to be affected by dexterity. And you can see here that it says affects physical range damage, melee damage dealt by rogues and ninjas. So here we see that it does affect melee damage, but for specific classes. So for rogues and ninjas, it's just because they're going to want to be super fast, and so instead of they're focusing more on speed and hitting things in the right places, which is going to take some definite dexterity. They're going to focus more on that. So instead of having strength for their melee damage as a base, or as their main stat, they're going to be looking at dexterity, and that happens as well too sometimes. But that's a pretty general thing. Any dexterous class, like a rogue or a ninja, or sometimes even martial fighters, are going to sometimes be dexterity based, and that's really it for that one. The next stat that we have here is called vitality, and you're going to see this have different names in different MMOs possibly. Vitality, you might see it called constitution. That's probably the only other one I can think of. There's probably some more, but those two for sure, vitality or constitution. And vitality is going to affect your health pool generally, and that's generally all it does for the most part. It's going to affect how much HP you have, and again, HP is your hit points. Everything in combat is going to deal damage. They're going to deal a specific number of damage based on abilities and based on their stats, and that also is going to go into an algorithm. So it's not necessarily that, if an enemy uses punch, they're always going to hit you for 13 damage. They may hit you for 12 one time, and the next time they may hit you for 11, or they may get a critical hit, which we talked about, I believe, earlier, which we talked about before, and do double what they would normally do on you, or so forth, so on. So the more vitality you have, the more hit points you have, which means you can take more damage. Now that may seem good, that's like something that you want, but depending on what class you're playing, you may not really focus on vitality that much. you may focus more on dexterity or intelligence. Generally, casters, any kind of magical based class is not really going to focus on vitality. But it also sometimes can affect if in the game in a game that you're playing, if you have an endurance meter, so you can only run for as long as that endurance meter is going to last, or your stamina meter, sometimes vitality will affect that as well. But generally in MMOs you're not going to have that, or in MMORPGs you're not going to have that. Vitality or constitution are definitely mainly just going to focus on your health pool. The next stat that we have is going to be intelligence. And intelligence, again, here we see that intelligence affects magic potency. You can see that Sig's intelligence is fairly low. He is a pugilist, so he actually doesn't have any magical spells. So he really doesn't really have a need for intelligence. In MMORPGs, intelligence is not going to define how smart your character is. It's not. It's like it's not, but it's a different type of stat. In other games it may, you know what I mean, because there may be intelligence-based activities outside of combat that you may need a certain amount of intelligence to perform well or to have a higher chance to succeed. But generally, you don't really have to worry about that for sure. And not really. And also, when you switch in Final Fantasy XIV, when you switch to a class that does require intelligence, it's actually when you switch to a class, it's actually gonna alter your stat points. So in Final Fantasy XIV, your base stat points and the rate in which they increase is based off what class that you're currently on. So if I were to go pick up Thaumaturge or Wizard, or a Wizard type character, my stats would actually change based on that class. So they kind of take care of that for you. You don't have to really do any of that managing, and a lot of MMOs are going to be like that. But intelligence is going to affect your magic potency, which is basically your damage spells, how much damage your spells do. And that's generally what it's going to be. In some MMOs, they will also affect, if you're playing a healing class, how potent your heals will be, or how much your healing spells will heal for. So sometimes intelligence can be dual purpose. Here in Final Fantasy, here's the next two is where it's kind of going to get a little wonky. Because these are stats that I actually haven't really seen in other MMORPGs. The next stat is Mind, and Mind is going to affect healing magic potency, so very specifically your healing spells, how potent they are, how much they heal for. So the higher that number is, the more potent your healing spells are, the more they're going to heal for. This is a stat, again, that I haven't really seen in other MMOs. Generally, those two are tied to intelligence. Both your attack spells and how much damage they do are going to be tied to intelligence, as well as your healing spells and how much you heal for is going to be tied to intelligence. So those things are generally shared. And the last one is going to be piety. And I'm kind of going a little fast here because I'm kind of realizing that we really don't need to go too much in depth as to what stats do, or what particular stats do, but we're going to go over them a little bit. And then piety is another stat that that I can think of seen in an MMORPG. There are other stats that affect the same thing, or have been, but I've never actually seen this particular stat. And so it is a good idea just to kind of browse through and see what the stats do, and see what they affect. And if you're really interested in what they do specifically, and if there's any, if there's any alter, or if there's any other things that they affect, you'll probably have to dig a little bit deeper. But generally, just getting a basic idea of what your stats do and what they mean and what they affect is definitely a good idea. Piety in this game is going to affect your maximum MP or magic points. Every spell that you cast, just as every skill that you use, like we have Boot Shine here, you can see that the TP cost is 60. But every spell that you use is going to have some kind of cost, and they're going to cost magic points. So the more magic points you have, the more spells you can cast. Now, generally you're going to have some kind of ability or some kind of item that you can use to refill your magic pool. So don't worry about pumping too much into whatever is affecting your magic point pool, unless you find that you need to. Because generally they're going to provide you a way, either through your class skills, the skills that your class has, or the abilities your class has, or through outside items like potions and things like that to kind of refresh your magic points. But that's generally it. So you can see now so you see that stats, what the stats do and things like that. But the reason we're going over this is because every class generally is going to have stats that they focus on, and you're going to want to know what those stats, what stats those are. And generally, you can, when you're picking your class, generally they're going to list, somewhere in the description, hey, let's go back to that Christmas music again, because it's way more chill than Ulda during the day. Generally somewhere in the description they're going to say this is somewhere they'll tell you somehow that this is a strength-based class, or that this class benefits mostly from strength or dexterity or intelligence or things like that. And if you skip over that, that's fine. It's not a big deal. Generally for the first couple of levels, you're really not going to have to worry about it. But another way that you can do it is by checking your starting weapon or your starting gear. So you can see here that Sig has these horrors, or these knuckles, and on them is, you can see there, I can't move the cursor because if I do, the tooltip will go away, but you can see under item level and under PLG or PGL Monk or MNK level 5, right under that where it says bonuses, you'll see that it says strength +1. Generally it's a good idea, or you can look at your main weapon and your starting weapon for sure to see what stat you need to focus on the most. You can see that we've got strength. So when they started us off and they gave us a weapon that had the most benefit for us, and strength is definitely going to be our most beneficial stat. And so we can see that that's what we're going to want to focus on the most. Is going to be strength. So we're a strength-based class. So that means when we get a new piece of gear, like this shirt here, we can see that it has strength and determination. So this is definitely a shirt that it would be good for us because it has strength on it. And generally, we'll talk about equipment later on. But so you can see that. So that way okay, when I'm, if I have a quest and it's giving me, and I complete that quest and it's giving me this option of rewards to choose from, and some of them are equipment, I can look through the equipment and go, okay, this one has intelligence on it. I don't really need intelligence. You know what I mean? I need strength. So I'm going to look for a piece of gear that has strength on it. When you first start off, that's generally going to be what you're going to want to do. You're definitely going to want to go for whatever piece of equipment has the highest, highest numerical value of your base stat. Later on, you're going to be looking at other things, and we're going to go over that way later. But we'll touch on it just real quick here. You can see that we got, and the bonuses, we have strength, and then next to it we have determination. And determination, as as we saw, isn't actually a main stat. It's what we call a substat. And later on you're going to be looking at those, because you're going to be comparing different pairs of gear that may be comparable on the item level. So it may be like an item level, you may have 2 item level 6 shirts, and one may have strength and determination, the other one may have strength and critical hit or accuracy or skill speed. Later on it's going to be a lot more, and you're going to be kind of, okay, you're going to be kind of going, okay, well, which one's the best and things like that, like what's best for what I have to work with right now. We're going to go over that way later on, but right now you don't really need to worry about that too much. Really all you need to worry about is knowing what your stats do, knowing what stat your class is, what your main stat is for the class that you play, and focusing on finding that, so you don't have to worry about it. You know, you can just go pick up that quest reward and look at the thing and go, okay, I know this class is an intelligence-based class, and this thing has intelligence on it. The other one has strength, so you know this is the one we get. You know, so this is the one we need, and you can just pick it up and continue on, just go. And that's really all there is to it. That's really it. Yeah, like I said, stats are, when you first start off, aren't really too big of a deal. Once you start getting into in-game and stuff like that, then it becomes like this, you know, it can become like this huge debate on which stat is better and blah, 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 blah. You don't really have to worry about that right now, but later on you will, and you'll definitely want to look into resources and things like that. Get on forum posts, get on Reddit, you know, get on, talk to friends and things like that. Talk to your people on your friends list. Talk to your guild mates or your clan mates, your FC mates, and just, you know, just ask them what they think, especially people who play a particular class more than they play others. And that's generally it for stats. There's really not much else to it. It's just knowing which ones you need, and that's really it. So the next thing we're going to talk about is leveling. As we said in MMOR, I think it was the first episode, the first refresher episode, was what an MMORPG is. The main focus, or the main goal in an MMORPG is to level, is to level and to reach max level, and then generally you're going to max your character out through gear, and you progress further through gear and things like that. So that's going to be the main form of progression. That's your main focus. Your main form of progression is going to be leveling. In order to continue with the story, sometimes you're going to have to be a certain level. Quests may have level requirements, and what a level is let's just go over that real quick. You can see a level is it's a stage of progression that's denoted. You can see down here that we have what's called an experience bar. We have an experience bar down here. Everything in the game world, for the most part, is going to give you some kind of experience, or experience points, as we call them. They're rewarded for defeating monsters, defeating enemies, other activities as well sometimes, even PvP sometimes in different games. Player versus player doing player versus player activities can yield you experience. And you can see down here that we have this experience bar. And what the experience bar what it does is it tracks how many experience points we've gained, and it also tracks how much experience we need to reach our next level. So you can see here that Sig's got 1,729 experience, and that he needs 2,300 in order to reach the next level. So he's very close. And what leveling does is it advances your character. Every time you level, generally you're going to get a stat increase that's static. You're not going to have to go through, which what that means is when you reach a level, your stats are going to increase by a set value, which is normally based off what class you're playing. Generally in MMORPGs, you're not going to have to go through it and when you reach a new level, you're given 5 stat points to allocate wherever you want. Generally, they're going to take care of that for the most part for you. In Final Fantasy XIV, they'll give you a couple bonus points every couple of levels that you can allocate wherever you want. And as far as Final Fantasy XIV is concerned, generally it's just a good idea just to go ahead and put those into your main stat. So every point that I get on Sig when he's a pugilist, he's going to go into strength, just because that's going to increase how much damage I do. It's going to increase the effectiveness of my abilities, and things like that. just as much as if I were a Thaumaturge or a Black Mage. Every point that I got would go to intelligence, because it's going to affect how much damage my spells do and how effective my abilities are. But generally, you're not going to. Generally, you're also going to get. Generally, they're going to handle that pretty much static. They're going to handle that for you. So if I were to go out and gain a level right now, we would be able to see that Sig's stat points are going to change. And that just increases the capability of your character. So when we're fighting, we're level 5 now, so we'd want to go out and fight level 5 monsters. And those level 5 monsters are tuned to do combat on that level of capability, on that stat capability level. So if I were to go and fight one as a level 3, that enemy is based on, or the idea is the enemy is tuned to fight a level 5 character, so it's going to be a little bit tougher for me as a level 3, because he's a level 5 and he's on that stat level. But if I go in as a level 7, it's going to be a lot easier for me. I'm going to have almost no problem taking that guy out, because he's tuned to fight a level 5 character. But if I go in and fight as on level 5, we're pretty much going to be on an equal quote-unquote ground as far as enemies go. Generally, if I did go up as a level 3, it would actually be relatively difficult, but I would be able to do it. I probably couldn't take two. You probably wouldn't be able to take 2 or more enemies who are a couple levels higher than you, but definitely one you could probably pull off very easily. You may have to pop some kind of HP restorative item or spell or something like that. You may have to cast a healing spell or use a potion during the fight, but you can typically do it. But if you're if you're above, typically you're going to just wipe the floor with them. But that's what levels are. It sets you where you are and where you need to be, so that you know. So if you walk into an area and you're level 5 and you see a bunch of level 10 enemies out there, this is not for me. This is not where I need to be. I need to go find somewhere else that's appropriate for my level. And the experience that you're going to gain is going to be proportional to that. Now it might make you wonder, well, if I did go out as a level 5 and beat a level 10 monster, is he going to give me the same? Is he going to give me level 10 experience? Yeah, he is. For sure he is. But here's the thing, right? Here's the thing. It's going to take you a long time to beat that guy up, if you can. It's going to take you a long time to defeat that enemy. And in the time that it would take you to defeat a level 10 as a level 5, you could probably defeat 3 level 5s maybe, and yield yourself more experience. So it's definitely more efficient and more effective to go ahead and fight things that are your level. And it's definitely more comfortable. But if you want to do that challenge, definitely give it a shot. Can't say I haven't done it. You know what I mean? You're walking through a place and you're level 6 or whatever, and you see this level 12 monster and it's huge, and you're just like, I just want to punch that thing. Just do it. Just go ahead and do it. You probably know you're gonna die. You know what I mean? But just do it anyways. Who cares? But that's what levels are. Levels are just they're a representation of how far your character has progressed, how capable your character is, but it also lets you know where you are and where you need to be. And so it's kind of a guide to a degree as well, which is super nice. You know what I mean? So we've talked about what levels are and what leveling is. Leveling is just gaining experience. To level is to gain experience to reach the next level. That's what leveling is. Now that's going to be your main focus, and it's going to be the main form of progression. But there are other things outside of that as well. There's goofing around. There's all different kinds of things. There's side quests that have nothing to do with anything, that don't really yield experience. They're just there for flavor and for fun. You know what I mean? There's exploring. You know what I mean? Things like that. There's totally all those things you can do. But in order to progress through the game, you're gonna want to level, and you're gonna want to do that the best way that you can. So that's what we're going to talk about next. Is we're actually going to talk about the leveling process, the process of leveling. Generally, there are 2 ways to level. There's defeating monsters or enemies, which every time you defeat one is going to yield you experience for sure. And then there's quests, questing. And quests are just tasks or adventures that that NPCs or non-playable characters like this guy here will give you, and on completing said task, you'll receive a reward, which is usually going to be listed in the quest text. So this guy here, generally, what you're gonna see is some kind of denotation that there is a quest above, that an NPC has a quest, or that there is a quest available. This guy here has this exclamation point over his head, and that's a pretty common thing as an exclamation point. But generally, you're going to see some kind of icon somewhere. It could even be over an item or things like that on how to pick up a quest. So that's just kind of what we're talking about now, is how to find quests, how to pick up quests. But there'll be some kind of icon that lets you know that there's a quest here to pick up. So let's go ahead and talk to this guy and see what happens. All right, so here we see that this guy has a quest for us. That's called Catch Your Breath. Catch Your Breath is the title of the quest, and it says, Boltolf finds himself at a loss after realizing the package he carries is not his own. So it's just a simple, little quest. So let's go over the quest. Let's go over the quest box here, the quest text here. So we can see up here in the left-hand corner, and generally somewhere in the menu or in the quest text, you're going to find this. This is a level 4 quest. So we're level 5. So this is still good for us. You know what I mean? It's also so they'll give you some kind of denotation as to what level you want to be in order to complete this quest. Let's say this was a level 6 quest. Some games will allow you to try and complete that level 6 quest, and if you do complete it, you'll complete it and you'll get the experience for it. In Final Fantasy XIV, they won't do that. They may let you complete the quest, but you generally won't be able to turn the quest in until you're the appropriate level. But this will just give you a general idea of how difficult the quest is and where you want to be in order to complete this quest. This part here is going to say, okay, these are the rewards for the quest upon completion. Here we see that we'll get 455 experience, which is a decent chunk of experience for us, for sure. That would bring us up to 21, roughly 2100 experience, which would bring us really close to leveling. And we can see also that there are other rewards outside of experience that will have some things to choose from. We'll have this chest piece here, or this chest armor here, which has strength on it and dexterity, and we can look at the information right there on what the item is and what its capabilities are. We can even see that it's dyed purple. The next one, and then this one here, has intelligence and mind, so that's going to be for casters. And we can see also that it's dyed red. And then we have this other reward. We'll have this other reward to choose from once we complete this quest as well. And this is Alligan bronze piece. So sometimes what you're going to get in quest rewards is, let's say we didn't need this chest armor here. And as we're a pugilist, that would be the only thing that we would really go for. We definitely don't need this because it's got intelligence on it, so it's not really for our class. So what they'll do sometimes is they'll offer something else that you can sell just to make some money, or some kind of alternative reward. So you can see here that we have this Alligan bronze piece. At the very bottom, you'll see that it sells for 100 gil. And that's really all it seems to do. It's a currency minted in the Third Astral Era by the Alligan Empire, and it's exchanged for gil. So that's really all it's for. Is it's just something that you're just gonna exchange for gil. You're just gonna go and sell it, and it'll give you a good bit of gil. Now, why would we choose that, right? This is getting a little bit into questing, which was going to be one of our next episodes. So we won't go too far into it, but we'll just do this real quick. You can see that let's say we didn't need this, right? If we're like, well, we'll just pick something. If we were to pick this up, we can see down at the bottom that it only sells for 3 gil. So we don't need it. The only thing we could use it for would be to sell it. But we're only going to get 3 gil for it. But since we don't need it, This thing, if we get this and sell it for, we can sell it for 100 gil, so we'll get more gil for it. So we would choose that if we didn't need either of these. But that's really it. So you can see that this quest is it's called Catch Your Breath. That's the name of the quest. We can see that it's a level 4 quest. We can see the rewards here, and then we can see the description of what the flavor text is for the quest. So let's go ahead and hit accept and see what happens here. And we'll get a little story bit. I went all the way to the Scorpion Crossing for a package, but only just now I realized I returned with the wrong one. The way back is so far. I simply can't. Would you make the trip back in my stead? Really, bro? I'm just kidding. I'm sure some poor soul at Scorpion Crossing is missing this package. I haven't the breath to tell you the way. Go and see. Mimishu. Cool. So we accepted the quest, and this again, what we're talking about here is leveling this. The first, there are 2 ways generally: defeating enemies and completing quests. So what we'll do is we'll just kind of intertwine leveling and questing right now, real quick, because they are pretty tied together. So you can see that we picked up the quest, and we have a little notification here that in our duty list, and generally in any MMO, and in any MMORPG, there's going to be some kind of HUD element or on-screen element that's going to let you know what quests you're on, and generally they will display a certain number of quests. But here we see that it's displayed. All right, this is our duty list, and we can see that here on our HUD layout that this is called the duty list here. And so on our duty list, you can see that we have picked up the quest Catch Your Breath, and the objective is, or the conditions are, that we need to speak with Mimishu. So, and by completing that, if we go back, we'll talk about questing. We won't intertwine them. I'm sorry, guys. We'll just do this. And so if we click on the quest text, there's generally, if we click on the quest text, we can see that by speaking with Mimishu, we'll get these rewards. We'll get the experience. We'll get these rewards, and that'll be the end of the quest. So that's generally how you'll level. In Final Fantasy XIV, there is one other way to level. Well, there's 2 other ways actually to level. The third way to level, and generally in MMOs, they're going to provide you a couple different alternatives, a couple different ways to level, just because doing the same thing over and over again, it can get monotonous. So you mix it up a little bit. In Final Fantasy XIV, we have leaves, which are specific quests that are repeatable. So if I were to complete this quest from Baltuf, that quest would be done, and I wouldn't be able to pick it up from him again. It would be complete, and that whole quest line would be over. What leaves are, they're repeatable quests, or basically it's an NPC that you can just pick quests up from constantly. They cycle through every time you pick some up. So generally they have a maximum of 4, and once you pick those 4 up, if you complete all 4, you go back, you turn them in. You might have some that you just completed, but you may have a couple new ones to choose from as well. But the leave mates are always going to have quests for you. So that's another alternative, or leaves. And there's a different way that those work. We won't go too much into that because there's really no need at the moment. But it is an alternative way to level. The fourth and really final way to level in Final Fantasy XIV, at very least, is what we call fates, or what they call fates. And I'll show you what those are real quick. So if we open up our map, we'll see this blue circle here. And what this blue circle does is it denotes that there's a fate actually active in this area. And what a fate is it's a public quest, pretty much. You can see some information on it. It's a level 7 fate, so that means you're probably going to want to be either close to level 7 or above and you can see how much time is remaining, that there's 52 seconds remaining in this fate, and the progress. So you can see that that fate was actually just completed, and it's pretty much exactly like a quest. Upon completing the conditions within the fate, generally it's going to be either defeat X monster, or defeat X monsters. By completing the fate, you'll gain you'll gain rewards as if you had completed the quest. You'll gain a certain amount of experience. Generally, you'll gain some gil, and you'll gain company seals, which is a currency specific to Final Fantasy 14. But that's also an alternative method to level. And so finding out how you can level and things like that within a game is definitely going to be good too. But generally speaking, defeating monsters and completing quests, that's the meat and potatoes. That's the mainstay of pretty much every MMORPG. In order to level, you're going to be beating up on monsters and enemies, and you're going to be real person, and you're going to look like a bot. Anyways, sorry. Or you're going to be completing quests, or both. Generally, if you're completing quests, you're probably going to be beating up on monsters. You know what I mean? So you'll be killing two birds with one stone. But that's pretty much it for stats and leveling, guys. Later on, for sure, once we get into, we're going to talk a little bit about equipment. We'll have an episode on equipment and how to equip, and how to know what you need to equip, and things like that. We're gonna do an episode on advanced equipment later on, like once you reach in game and things like that. So we're gonna do a little bit of that, but that's really it for our stats and leveling, and we'll probably do an advanced one on stats as well once we get to that point. But that's generally it. So I hope you guys enjoy. If you have any questions, or if you have anything that I didn't go over, if there's anything that you feel I didn't go over, or anything you wanted to know about, just leave us a comment in the comment section, or you can send us an email at ffxivandthingsmailbox@gmail.com, and we will do whatever. We will do whatever you guys need, whatever you guys want. We'll definitely do it. So just let us know, and I hope you guys enjoy, and we'll see you later. Say goodbye, Sig. Bye, Sig. And we'll see you guys later.